So we're at that part where we're going to be finding the rule for a given graph. And we can see here that we're told that the form of this particular graph is a sine graph. So it's y equals a sine nx. We just need to find the values of a and n because we're told the form of the function. So let's have a look then at working our amplitude to start with, and we can see that by looking at the graph that we have a maximum of 2 and a minimum of -2. So our amplitude is going to be 2. Our period then, if we're having a look at what our period is, we're looking to see how long does it take to get through one complete cycle. And so we're starting at 0, finishing at 4 pi, so our period is 4 pi. Okay, so we've got that form that's given, so we can see that we need to write y equals a sine nx, and we need to find the values of a and n, as I said before. Now we can see that our amplitude is 2. Now that implies that our a value is 2, because we can see that it starts at and goes straight up, which is what the normal sine graph, so it's not reflected. Our period being 4 pi, that's going to help us to determine what our n value is. And normally our period is determined by going 2 pi divided by n. Okay, so period equals 2 pi over n. Now we want to find n, so that means by multiplying by n and then dividing by the period, we can say our n value is 2 pi divided by the period. And so that means then that we can go 2 pi divided by 4 pi, which simplifies to 1/2. Okay, so that means we can write our equation as y equals 2 sine half x. All right, so this time we've been given the graph, but we're not actually told a particular form for it, but we are to work out what the function would be if it was a sine function and also if it was a cosine function, because we know that they both have the same shape, but they're just horizontal translations of one another. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to work out first of all this particular graph as a sine function. So then we can first of all work out what the amplitude is, and if we have a look, we can see that it's reaching a maximum of 2 and a minimum of -4. So the total distance between the top and the bottom is 6 units. That implies then that our amplitude would be half of that. Okay, so we're going from 2 down to -1 is our halfway point, so our amplitude is going to be 3. The period, let's have a look at that. Now, if we look at this particular graph, it's not particularly well drawn. It's a little bit deceiving there in terms of start and finishing point. But if we have a look at the maximums, the distance between the peaks, then we can see quite easily what the period is. Okay, we're going from pi on 4 to 5 pi on 4, which is pi. Okay, so that means our period is pi. All right, so we've got our amplitude, we've got our period. And let's have a look now at finding what the equation is as a sine function. So if we have a look at the methods information sheet, then we can see that the form that's given there for a general sine function is y equals a sine n x plus b plus c. So we can write that here, and what we need to do is determine what our values for a, b, and c and n are. Okay. So if we start there by looking at our value for a, our amplitude is 3, and because it's not reflected, our value for a is 3. Our value for b is determined by seeing if we've got any horizontal phase shift, and we can see there isn't. Okay, it's starting normally where it would for the basic sine function, so our b value is 0. C, on the other hand, is going to be -1 because we can see that it's dropped down by 1 unit. A value for n is going to be 2 pi over our period. Okay, and our period is pi, so 2 pi over pi, which is 2. That's going to enable us now, once we've worked out those values, we can simply put them into that rule that we've got. So y equals 3 sine 2x, and the brackets around that, and then -1, because we've got a vertical translation of -1. So now we'll look at part B, which is working it out as a cosine function. And if we have a look at the general rule for the cosine function, it's very similar. We've just got values of a, b, c, and n that we need to determine. So y equals a cos n times x plus b plus c. As with the sine function, our value for a is 3. This time our value for b is determined by seeing how it's shifted across. Now normally cosine starts on the y-axis up the top, okay, but it's actually shifted across, and we can see by looking at the scale there, it's shifted across pi on 4 units to the left, which means b is negative pi on 4. So just move to the right rather. Our value for c is -1, and our value for n is 2. So then we can put into our rule y equals a cos, so it's 3 cos 2x minus pi on 4, because it's shifted to the right pi on 4 units, -1, and that's our rule.